Hey Dave, what's the funniest thing about clowns?
I don't know. What's that?
Nothing. There's absolutely nothing funny about clowns. Nothing at all. Welcome to the first picture show, a possibly sporadic ongoing series where we discuss horror and thrillers from all of your favorite streaming platforms and anything else we damn well please. I'm Nobel Laureate Jason Monet. I'm here with my critic extraordinaire, David Joseph. Hi Dave, how's it going this week?
Going well. How you doing?
Oh, just fantastic.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right.
let's get into it. Let me talk about what this movie is. For the last few years, clowns have been having a tough time getting respect in our society. Our feature film, Terrifier, dares to ask what no other movie, TV show, radio show, comic book, fictional novel, or even historical account of a serial killer has ever suggested before: can clowns also be scary? Big question. In Terrifier, Art, the clown, is a quiet, lanky clown in the classic tradition of commedia dell'arte. But he's also kind of a mean streak and a lust for horrifically mutilating innocent victims, especially, no surprise, scantily clad ladies. This bottle episode of a movie follows Art on Halloween night as he stalks and preys on a small group of strangers stuck in a building. David, thoughts?
All right. Well, I think one of the hallmarks of a good slasher film is if you get so angry at the characters, you start screaming at the television. And I definitely did do that this time.
Were you angry at every character, or were you angry at victims, or were you angry at villains?
Victims at the
Yeah.
victims. Because they had this guy
Yeah.
a couple times. Anyway, so I don't want to give it away. All I'm saying is, here's the deal: if you are, just promise me,
Hmm.
if you're being chased by, whatever murderer, you get a shot, man. You gotta take it. You gotta come on, like don't just knock the guy down and run away. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah. In terms of general advice, if you're going to attack some sort of seemingly superhuman demon, don't just hit them with a board and then decide to move to a different room. Finish your work. See what you've done.
Maybe don't take the time to taunt the guy too. Maybe just go get it over with.
I mean, overall, I would say that I thought it was kind of just it was grotesque, certainly, which has its place in life. But it was also just kind of boring and generic. I mean, there just wasn't a hell of a lot to latch onto here,
Well, there's no story. There's no story at all.
I mean, the story is a building, and there's lots of people that are inside different rooms in a building, and there also happens to be a maniac clown in the building at the end.
I mean, when you put it that way, it makes it sound pretty good.
I would go to that. I would go to that horror house walkthrough.
When there's so little in the way of story, it gives you the opportunity to really pick things apart.
Yeah.
There's some things that don't make sense. And all the doors are locked, but somehow people keep getting in.
It's kind of like a Rochetel. Like everybody can get in, nobody can get out for some unknown reason.
Yeah, in the so in the beginning, the movie, there's a scene in a pizza parlor. It's very very early in the film.
Yes.
And they after what happens in the pizza party, they come back to the car, and someone goes in the building, use the bathroom, and already the woman sitting in the car is hearing about what's going on at the pizza parlor on the radio.
Yeah, that was some amazing bit of exposition there that they managed to stick into that movie.
And that's okay, fine. Apparently the press was on the spot right off the bat.
Right off the bat. Yep.
But and you do see like an ambulance, I think, drive by. But why isn't that place like crawling with cops? I mean, they just walk to the car. They're not that far away. Murderers on the loose.
It's like down the block, essentially.
How do you get streets that empty?
Right.
like they definitely didn't have anybody else walking around.
No, it was a very quiet Halloween night and a very empty pizza parlor. Never go to that pizza parlor.
Yeah, I know. Like everyone should be drunk and getting their pizza. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's definitely. I mean, the movie's got problems, man. I mean, it's got problems, but you know, the lighting. I wanted to ask you about the lighting because the lighting, like, I'm not sure the lighting made any sense.
I mean, it was dark. No, there's absolutely no surprises in this. There's a lot of things to talk about in what you just said. I think the first thing I would say is that, I the reason I like horror to begin with is because I feel like it's a genre that really gives you creative freedom to do a lot of different fun, experimental, surreal things. So anytime I watch a horror movie that doesn't, I think, take advantage of this and try different things with lighting or try different sort of effects or try, just a conceptual direction that I haven't seen before, then I feel like it's a wasted opportunity. I think with this movie specifically, I would equate the lighting to like an Instagram filter. It was pretty much the same sort of like overlit, a little bit too saturated, sort of a color template or palette with the whole thing. Having said that, it's not like it necessarily ruined the movie for me or anything like that. I think it was still at least a stylistic direction, even if I don't think it was a great stylistic direction. But at least it had something.
Yeah, there's definitely a sheen, a polish to it that
Yeah,
it's pleasing, but it's
it
yeah.
it helped unite the entire film as well. I mean, it certainly helped give it a visual direction that held it together because there wasn't really anything else to hold it together. There certainly wasn't really a plot line to hold it together.
No.
There certainly wasn't really any kind of character development to hold together, or even a character that made it all the way through. No spoilers to hold it together.
Well, it's also I'm jumping around a bit, but basically, at the beginning of the movie, you see the end of the movie. Really, I mean, like they tell you everything that's going to happen, and I'm not sure that worked.
In doing some research ahead of time, which was basically just like looking at IMDb,
Sure.
Which I don't know if you did that as well.
No, not with IMDb. I didn't do that.
Okay. All I would say is that it seemed like the character of Art the Clown, which is the villain from this movie, was developed in an earlier short the guy, Damien Leone, the director-writer, had made. And what I think happened, because it seemed like from the credits, Terrifier was at least partly funded by Indiegogo subscribers, is that the first opening sequence, which apparently has nothing to do with anything else, was possibly tying up the end of this short. I don't know, because I haven't seen the short itself. I'd actually be interested in seeing it just because. But it seemed like it was something that, was there as lip service to fans of the original work in some ways. It certainly set a tone for the rest of the movie in that it was sort of confusing and excessively gory and didn't necessarily pay off in the way that I think he wanted it to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll get the sequel.
Well, apparently we will. I think there's a really big question about the identity of Art the Clown in a lot of ways. There's certainly, in this movie at least, there's absolutely no backstory. There's absolutely no idea about what his motivation is as a terrible, horrific killer. There's no real sense of that he's trying to accomplish anything or if he has any kind of intention. There's no real way for Damien Leone to build up suspense, and the movie had to rely entirely on this preconceived notion about clowns just being scary creatures, which is kind of a lazy concept at this point. I mean, it really reduces the main character to a pastiche of tired tropes that we've already seen many, many times, especially on the heels of much bigger blockbuster movies like It, which came out, I think, last year, right? Stephen King's It?
Yeah, it came out last year.
Yeah.
This one, I think, debuted at Telluride in 2016. So this movie might actually be older.
So this movie, I take it back. This movie predates It.
Its release was this year, though.
Although
in March.
It as a series and a franchise has been around for quite a long time. It just feels like certainly clowns were having a moment between 2016 and now. Random actual clowns who are scary were in the woods. It seemed like it was a good time to strike. But certainly the idea of a scary clown in general is not something that we haven't seen before, and certainly been reused over and over again. And there was nothing about this scary clown that made him unique in any way whatsoever. It was just sort of like this combination of a lot of exactly what you would expect if you were going to dress up at Halloween as a scary clown.
Yeah, they definitely, you're right. They they're cashing in on the clown craze. But I will say this, because earlier I said that there are no surprises, and that's not entirely true. There are definitely some left turns.
Yes, there are definitely left turns.
Some things that you don't expect to see in a slasher movie. Some of the tropes that are turned on their ear a bit. Basically, you think the one girl, the girl seems the girl in the beginning that goes to use the bathroom. I'm gonna get the names mixed up.
That's okay. There's two girls. So the movie really starts with two female leads, a blonde and a brunette. The blonde is the dittier, drunker one, of course, in this situation, because that's what the kind of writing we're dealing with is. Her name is Samantha in the movie. Or no, her name is Victoria in the movie. She's played by Samantha Scathati. Tara is the smarter, wiser, craftier brunette friend, played by Jenna Canal. Yeah. And as you were saying.
Well, no, so Jenna's kind of the more straight-laced and virtuous. She's definitely the Dawn would have been the she was the party girl that you thought, oh, she's done, she's dead immediately you see her. But the other one, that's the one that you think is gonna ride it to the end, is gonna make it, is gonna escape, because she's the smart one, the one that won't let them drink and drive, the one that
right. Yeah, I mean, I think in this situation, Damien Leone, the director-writer, he sort of telegraphs the idea of her being a final girl in a way that's really he over the head. Like he's really like trying to nail down this concept. And I think that's why it takes a left turn in a certain way. I mean, I think that he's setting that situation up so that he can deviate from it to try to make it seem like he's getting outside of the mold on a very classic sort of horror tradition. But for me, from my point of view, it was like, it's not so much that I thought it was too heavy-handed, as much as I just thought that shifting up the routine so much, it actually ended up creating a sort of this aimless sort of sense for the rest of the movie. Like, it just ended up creating a bunch of other unconnected vignettes as other side characters had to come in to take the place of new victims, and that made the whole thing almost entirely centered around the idea of just visceral torture and sedition. Basically, it was torture porn in the truest sense in this movie. But I mean, there really wasn't any reason to tie it together with all the different victims. It was just random people that sort of wandered in on the set that were then taken care of,
dispatched.
I guess it depends on what you're in for this movie, because I think in some ways, if you're in for torture porn to begin with, which is what I really think this movie clearly is, then you're probably happy to see any victim dispatched in any capacity. If you're in to see like somebody, survive in the face of adversity, then it's kind of like a cheap knock. It doesn't seem like it really adds up.
Well, that's I think you kind of said that's a good segue into what I wanted to ask you is when you have when you have a character that is. He's as scary as he is. I mean, this is a scary dude, this Art the Clown. But there's a silliness to it, and there's a there's a super heavy dosage of misogyny going on here.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, because I really wanted to address misogyny in this, but go forward. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, there's no. I mean, look, misogyny is terrifying, and it does make this a scarier film. But it's almost, when there's no story and there's no character development, I don't know how comfortable I am with this. Just because, it's just I don't know. It's gratuitous. I mean, I get it. I mean, that's a slasher film, but. I don't know.
Yeah, no, because at this point, I mean, it's just pure voyeurism in a lot of ways. I mean, here we are taking these female characters and these figures, and we're purely using them as fodder for preying upon them, right? Mm-hmm. There's really no other reason that they're going through this exercise other than the sheer thrill of watching them be preyed upon, because there's no There's no explanation of why. There's no explanation of intention. There's no explanation of motivation. So all you have to go on is the idea that this movie is just a series of connected scenes that are about a crazy clown trying to torture women, for the most part.
Yeah, he definitely, it's balanced numerically.
I noticed that too. It's balanced numerically, but I would say that without giving anything away, the kills for most of the male victims are much different. I mean, they're much quicker. They're usually out of the blue.
Well, they're not at all sexual in nature.
They're not sexual in nature, and there's also absolutely no sort of stalking in as well. I mean, that's certainly a difference between the movie. Really consists of Art the Clown kind of stalking specific victims, and all those victims happen to be women.
Well, the men are wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah,
for the most part, yeah. So I mean, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around, because it definitely scared me more as a result of that, and that's really the point of the movie.
Well, so I feel like you're thinking about this in a bigger idea, because basically you're saying because your reaction to this movie made you feel like this movie was misogynistic in and of itself, that upsets you, which is effective. It's effective as a horror for you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would love to say that was maybe an intention on the director's part. I really don't think it was. I really think that that's more of a side effect of the director's part.
Well, that's what it's funny. I should only really consider how it affected me. But I mean, I sometimes I wonder, like, well, there's going to be other people that they're not scared. They're just it's. I mean, look. I mean, there is a silliness to it because it's so over the top. So I mean, I'm not going to say like a person would be a horrible person if they laughed at this, because it's so crazy. But I don't know. I mean, I think that it's when a movie's so surface, I start to question things, and I get a little. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
It's uncomfortable because there's absolutely no justification for what you're watching necessarily. There's no real conceptual reason behind what's happening. So then it's just the presentation of this kind of uncomfortable scenario.
It does make the movie. I think it's pretty scary. It's definitely it delivers on that.
Well, were you actually? Well, let's back up for a second. What are your actual personal connections to clowns? Like that never was a thing that bothered me. That never bothered you? You were never scared of clowns? What about Santa Claus?
I'd be scared of a clown with a meat cleaver or something, but just a clown for a clown that never did anything to me. I mean, if a clown is threatening, sure. I mean, then it's different.
What clowns are not threatening? They're all kind of threatening. What about Chuck E. Cheese?
Nah.
Santa,
no problem.
the Easter Bunny.
Easter Bunny's good.
Wow, you were a much braver kid than I was scared of all of those things.
Well, is it scary or is it just pressure? I mean, it's a lot of pressure. Okay, you're meeting the guy,
Well, I don't know. I mean, Dave, maybe for you it's pressure because you've really got to try to figure out how to deliver on the good side. But for me, obviously, I'm perfect, so I would never sweat.
Came naturally.
Yeah, it just was like, of course I'm going to get all the presents I asked for. I deserve them. Why would I not? This actually brings me to another question I had about it, which is this actually a movie about a supernatural clown, or is it a movie about a serial killer clown that's real?
Oh, I think it's supposed to be both. I mean, it's just like it seems like a Michael Myers situation to me, like real guy, real serial killer, but definitely there's a supernatural element, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I totally buy that idea. What you just said. I guess what I would say is in Halloween, it's not really clear about the supernaturality of Michael Myers until the sequels, when it's very clear that there's a supernatural thing going on. With this movie, though, it seems to sort of like put it out relatively early on. I mean, I think that the clown, Art the Clown, ends up getting beat up a lot in this movie, and just seems to keep on going.
Fine.
Which, certainly we've seen that happen before, but there's something that happens at the end of the movie, without giving it away, that would definitely put a finality to it, and then clearly doesn't. So, obviously, and especially with the, some part of the scene in the at the end there with special lighting effects and lightning and things like that, it very much seems to suggest that Art is a supernatural being. I don't understand then why. I don't understand why he's such a normal clown otherwise. I mean, it just feels like if he's supposed to be supernatural and if this is really about this sort of like really special gifted clown, I really wish they had done more with that concept, or at least I wish they'd done more with how they treated the victims, because the way that he dispatched people was ultimately kind of just straightforward and boring in a way. I mean, there's obviously excessive gore, but like, there's nothing special about anything he does. It's all pretty much what you might expect.
Yeah, I think they didn't want to. They definitely think they were holding some stuff back for the crazy ending, and for the sequels for sure. I mean, maybe we'll get the origin story at some point. I guess I'm definitely spoiling things now, but whatever. We'll warn people in the title or whatever. He uses a gun.
Yeah, which I thought was really funny. I mean, I think it was, again, I would say it was another very left field decision that was supposed to be sort of like shocking and I got you. I'm going outside of what you would expect for this sort of basic, collection of horror tropes, but
it worked on me. I was like, whoa.
It worked in the sense that I thought it was like funny, and I guess I feel like Art the Clown was supposed to be funny in a way, but but I also feel like it just, I don't know, it felt a little lazy after everything else that was going on in the movie.
Yeah, but it also it delivered a sense of realism to me. I always wondered in these movies, like, look, you got to be ready for when things go sideways. I mean, when you're killing people are wily. Like they stuff can go sideways. Maybe you should be ready with a piece, and and he was. I mean,
yeah, no, I see your point there. I mean, in a way, it did add a real sense of realism to the story. It's just that was the only small element of realism you could add to the story. So it kind of felt a little out of place, and it just felt a little bit, it felt a little bit forced, I guess, or it felt a little too convenient, I guess I would say. I have kind of a theory about some of the stuff that's happening with Art as the clown, and this is my deep thought about this movie.
Okay, yeah.
It seems that his major MO in this movie is face mutilation, which is kind of an interesting characteristic for a villain whose identity evolves around facial distortion to begin with and masking an identity. So it's like, is he pursuing this concept of a loss of identity? Or perhaps he feels like he alone must be like the last clown standing or something, like he must destroy everybody else's, face to become that clown face. I don't know. It was the only thing I could kind of connect the dots on in terms of what the psyche was behind him.
I mean, I guess the makeup is like a mask, so it's there's something there. You're right. There's definitely something there because he's painting his face. Maybe he's got some kind of grotesque, deformity or some sort of. Yeah, we'll learn. I'm sure it'll all play out. It costs like, $100,000 to make, maybe a little more. But they'll make money hand over fist on these things.
Yeah,
so they're gonna keep coming.
You want to donate to the next Indiegogo funding for this so that we can see the sequel?
Yeah, I'm in. I'm in for $5.
$5,000, got you down. No problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when this video takes off,
obviously this will bring them a lot more. Yeah.
First show money starts rolling in, and maybe I'll kick Mr. Leone a couple bucks.
Dave, do you feel like are clowns scary anymore in a modern era? I mean, it just feels like we've seen happy clowns, we've seen sad clowns, we've seen scary clowns. Is this something that can still be explored, or is this just kind of a tired idea?
I think it's there. I mean, I think it's timeless. People are terrified of clowns. I never picked up on it. I mean, I was always aware of that, but it never bothered me. And I don't think of myself as some kind of tough guy.
That's funny. I think of you as a tough guy.
I appreciate that. It's like. I mean, definitely this movie was scary, but it needed to do stuff for me. I think there are some people that you could just, play around with some spooky music and lighting and not have a whole lot happen, and they'd still be scared just because it's a clown,
Yeah, that's fair. So that's
But
yes. So
what about you? What do you think? You think?
I guess what I would say is that I am ready for somebody to take the idea of clowns and do something more interesting with them, other than just the fact that they're kind of grotesque animations of humanity and that they carry knives. I mean, even with Stephen King's It, it's sort of like I enjoyed the movie last year to a certain degree, but also I'm like, I'm just kind of, it's just like, yeah, sure, it's a scary clown. I get it. We've all seen this a lot. I mean, ICP, Insane Clown Posse has been doing this for like 20 years at this point. I don't think we need to really kind of investigate the very basic idea of this anymore. Let's see what else can happen. On the other hand, we do have John Wayne Gacy. So it's sort of like there is a reason, there's a foundation to why this has become such a specific idea in pop culture. And it's a very good foundation for that matter. So, there is. I can see why people keep returning to it. There's a lot of like sort of uncomfortable senses around clowns. As you know, like I said earlier, my personal history with them is to be very wary of clowns.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I was not scared by this movie.
No, not at all.
No. To me, it's like if a movie's going to be scary, it has to present some sort of sense of tension, and there was no tension in this movie. We knew exactly what was going to happen the whole time, for the most part.
It's funny because that's what scared me.
The tension?
The inevitability of everything.
Oh, the inevitability.
How bad is this going to get? I know it's, it can only be, it's going to be bad, or it's going to be worse, or it's going to be way worse.
That's like the most clinically depressed way of thinking about horror movies. Like how much worse can this possibly be for me?
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it's I'm just torturing myself by watching stuff like this, because it's like, well, I mean, usually though, you get the idea that someone's gonna make it. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that feeling here. It was just bleak.
Yeah, it was just bleak, and I guess I feel like that's probably a part of the idea of torture porn in general, is that there's really no hope or escape from the idea of it.
That's what's scary. I mean, to me, performances. I think art was amazing.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, well, let's break it down. Well, the good things that I think about this movie, just in general.
Okay.
I mean, I would say that David Howard Thornton, who is the actor behind Art the Clown, was actually pretty good at doing it. And I read that he had some experience doing mime stuff in general.
Yeah.
So he clearly knew what he was doing. I mean, I think that he was effective in terms of his physicality. I think that he was effective as being actually funny. I mean, at certain times, there were some really good actual setups in this movie that paid off. And it's kind of like, I feel like he's the one that really sort of made the whole thing survivable in terms of watching this movie, because he was doing it effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Other performances, hit and miss.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was certainly the Dawn, the blonde, the taller blonde girl. She was good in some scenes, and she was awful in some other scenes. Like, you definitely did not do a great job with being drunk. But I thought in the pizza parlor, she was because she was funny. I mean, that was
yeah.
So it's hard. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe Damien Leone gave them 50 pages each of backstory, but I doubt. I doubt
Probably
they had
not.
much to work with.
Don't see that happening. Yeah.
So what do you have to just kind of go by the movies you've seen in the past, I guess, and try and go fit into the overall aesthetic. It's really hard to judge the performances, just because there's not a whole lot to work with.
Yeah, I agree. It was a hard script for people to tackle. I think there wasn't a lot for them to do. So you get some mixed results out of that, but that you take what you can get.
Well, yeah. Who else stood out to you, or did anyone?
I don't know if anyone. I mean, I don't really know if anyone. Certainly, like we were saying, David Howard Thornton, who was there at the clown, did stand out. I liked Matt McAllister's performance as the Exterminator, but I don't know if I would say it was like a great performance. It just seemed like it was a little more even keeled than some of the other performances. The main heroines all had to sort of, run through the gauntlet of being scared and suspicious and drunk and terrified and whatever. And
crazy.
You get crazy, and you get some interesting results from that. I think that Jenna Canal, who played Tara, the brunette, at times was very effective, and at times felt like she was trying to struggle through the script. I think that I thought that the bag lady character was very over the top and a little bit, it felt just kind of forced and unnatural and also necessary. There really wasn't a lot for anyone to do. It was just sort of waiting around to get killed. So you can't really blame them too much, I guess.
No. I guess. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's another. I thought that the bag lady, I guess the one with the baby, she was interesting. She came at that in a kind of interesting way. I think that he's such an oddball character, just the person that just thrown into this place. There's absolutely no explanation, or just you couldn't even. I mean, you can't know what the hell she was doing there. So,
it was actually. I thought it was actually really confusing when they introduced her, because it didn't seem like it was connected to the rest of the movie. It felt like it was just sort of such a completely out of the blue thing to do, and also, I mean, honestly, I was confused about where the action was taking place. I mean, because it looked like she was in a big open lot with all her stuff. This bag lady. I was like, she is Tara, the main character, suddenly outside of the building. It just didn't quite gel up for me.
I think it's a big basement.
I guess so. Well, it's like a big basement / garage. Like, it's just, but I don't really, I had a hard time understanding the physicality of the space in a way, because it felt like it was just.
The layout is a little confusing, because then you get upstairs and it's claustrophobic. It's tight corridor and yeah.
What else did you like? So what else is the good?
Well, I mean, we might be through the good.
Well, should we move on to the bad? Just quick, concise.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we talked about the bad, but I mean, like, what else? What would you say is, if you're going to boil it down to a few points, what would you say the bad is?
I think that the certain issues with continuity. I think the guy says at one point, like, all the doors are locked, I can't get in. And then cut to the girl gets in.
Yeah, right.
I was like, wait a second, how'd that happen? And maybe art, if you go back to the supernatural, once you introduce a supernatural element, I guess everything's out the window. He could be locking and unlocking the doors.
Sure.
But that was a little odd. And then just the total lack of a story. I mean, that's an intentional decision. I'm not naive. I know he doesn't think there's a story.
Yeah.
So it's just you're just kind of left with, the other thing I said before is that there are opportunities that, you could play around with the lighting and had stuff hidden, coming out of the dark, and that never happens in this film. There's always just a perfect beam of light right where you need it.
Like things glow. Things glow, and that's your source of light in this movie for some reason.
Yeah, and did you notice? I don't know if it's just because it was I was watching it on an HD screen or something. There definitely, I mean, clearly, I can't fathom that this was shot on film. There was definitely a grain.
Oh yeah.
Definitely you hit it. There was a filter in it, and it does look good. I mean, because it's because it's got a sheen to it. There's a glow, but there's also a bit of a grittiness to it.
Yeah, which I think was. I mean, I guess I feel like that's what the point of the filter was, to make it seem a little more gritty and sort of like surreal in a way. But did it make it seem more like actually scary or suspenseful or anything? It didn't for me. It just felt like a filter, you know.
It's a style.
It's a style, yeah.
It's try to mimic, like what it would look like, 1981 in some grindhouse, theater.
That's interesting you bring that up because I did see a lot of reviews that talked about they liked how they liked this movie because it was sort of a throwback to an '80s slasher flick, or flick.
Oh, absolutely.
A slasher. Let me do that again. It was a throwback to an '80s slasher flick, and I guess I see that in spirit, but I don't feel like the execution was at all like an '80s slasher flick. I don't know if you have an opinion about that.
Well, it does feel that way to me, is because in this era, we're living through the Me Too movement, where you think that at some point the female is going to have her moment, and it's not just going to be this just ride down misogyny lane, which is what you got in the '80s. And maybe you still get. I don't see them that down the line anymore. I don't watch as many of them as a lot of other people, though. So I think that in that sense it did kind of have that kind of '80s feel to it, because it was just there was none of that. It was just crazy guy killing everyone.
Yeah. Although I guess I feel like there was usually more setup for that kind of idea from these other movies. I feel like even with things that have become sort of classic now, like Michael Myers in Halloween or whatever, they do sort of give you a backstory. They do give you sort of a sense of history. They give you a sense of why he's going to the place he is. there's a lot of stuff happening that sort of fills in the blanks, and then this movie is just all blanks and then gore. So, for me, it lacked any real tension. I think that the performances are mostly forgettable. It's 84 minutes, but it's still dragged a bit in certain areas because there just wasn't a real reason to see why there was any reason for this. We're talking about like how the gore and the violence is excessive and sort of interesting from that point of view, but also it is senseless because there's absolutely no explanation behind it, and that it depends on how you feel about this stuff to begin with. To me, it just didn't help at all. But if you're a fan of this kind of horror to begin with, then maybe you would find this pretty exciting.
Yeah, this stuff is disturbing. So for me, it's hard to say it doesn't work. Definitely knocked me for a loop.
Yeah, but I guess what I would say is that I've seen plenty of gorier films, or at least films that are equally gory, that are more interesting in the way that they handle the violence, and certainly more interesting in the way that they handle the actual filming and execution of what they were doing. I guess I feel like this was very straightforward. It was like, here, I'm going to do this terrible thing. You see that's going to happen, and then I do it. And it felt like it was put in there for shock, but it wasn't really effectively scary from that point of view. It felt like it was very contrived.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely tell you what's coming, and then torture you with it. Yeah, I think that to me it fulfilled its it did its job, and it gets in and gets out. It's not a long movie, so. Would you recommend it to somebody?
That's a good question. Would I recommend it to somebody? I guess what I would say is that if you're a scary clown completist, then you should probably watch this. But otherwise, you can probably skip it and sleep well at night without any problems.
Yeah.
What's your verdict? Would you?
It's hard. It's like something this utterly grotesque. It's hard to recommend it to someone. It's but on the other hand, if you're up for if you don't have a real weak stomach and you're not the kind of person that's prone to nightmares or it's worth turning on Netflix. I think it's a super slick. it's a well done movie in a lot of areas. I just don't know how I feel about it. There are definite, I think, concrete problems that we've beaten to death, but no pun. So, all right, I got this something I needed to. I can't believe I almost forgot to bring this up.
Yeah.
So I get having a small budget.
Yeah.
That's how I live my life, right?
Yeah.
So but I think there does come a point in time where when you can't come up with a place to shoot a scene, then you just can't do that scene. Because to call that a coroner's office, like, that was ridiculous.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, it was.
That is somebody's dirty basement.
Yeah,
that is not. I was just like, what?
Yeah.
What are we doing this scene?
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah, no, it was definitely somebody that he knew, or somebody found some underground space. They turned a studio apartment into a little coroner's office for a weekend. I don't know.
Whew,
you gotta be resourceful. When you're an independent filmmaker, you gotta be resourceful. And it's like, well, I guess you tried.
But I'm nitpicking this guy. It's not like I could make a movie, period. But
Yeah, look, kudos to Damien Leone for following his dreams and making what he wants to make. And clearly, this had a fan base. Clearly, there were supporters. People actually independently funded this, and there are plenty of good reviews about it on IMDb and other places.
Oh yeah.
I believe that it has like a 6 something or 7 something on IMDb right now, which is just like, it should tell you about the rabidity of the fans for this movie, because clearly those are people that are really committed to the idea of Art the Clown. How do you think we would do in this situation? Would we survive Art the Clown?
Well, yeah. You know what? I'll say yes, because they had him. They had him a couple times, and they let him off the hook.
So you feel like we would not let him off the hook?
I'd like to think that. I would not. I think that if I got it, look, here's the deal. Like, I don't have like any real belief in my own fighting ability or anything, but I think that if I did get the chance, I would take it. I mean, heck, let's. I mean, if you've got the guy on the ground and you're beating him up with a board, are you going to step back and say, "Get up, get up"? No.
No. Also, there were so many other things she could have grabbed. I mean, it just it felt like she was setting herself up for failure in this situation, unfortunately. But
that's like I said, he deviates from some tropes, but boy, that's one that he goes with hard in this one.
There were so many times when victims managed to get up and either stab or like smash down or knock out Art the Clown, and with one punch or one stab, and then run away. As if it was like, that's it, I'm done, no problem. Of course, that's not true.
Yeah, in the exterminator, why did they're in a safe place, and he's like, I'm getting out of here. Like, what? Why? What are you doing? Why would you do that? The cops are on the way. Just wait. Dumb.
So what else have you seen? Anything else going on? What else have you watched recently?
Yes. I've been working my way through. I finished Punisher. I don't know if. I'll tell you what. That's almost as gory as this was.
Is it really?
It's like RoboCop. Like it's good. It's a good story though. It's I really enjoy Punisher, and I in the beginning, I'm like 2 episodes into the Jessica Jones season 2. I really liked season 1, so hopefully this is anywhere near as good as that. The last few days I've been just so busy with work. I kind of let everything drop. What about you? What are you into now?
I have to, like, I haven't watched any of the comic Marvel Universe stuff that's been streaming on for TV shows. And I'd kind of like to. I'd like to watch Jessica Jones. I'd like to watch The Punisher. I'd like to watch Luke Cage. I'd like to watch a bunch of like things. I just haven't gotten to them yet because there is so much other stuff. I tell you what, I did watch finally after we had a conversation about it was Mother, which is a movie that I had wanted to see, like when it came out, and I didn't for whatever reason, and then I totally forgot about it until you brought it up, and then I watched it, and it was pretty interesting one way or the other.
I loved Mother. I loved Mother.
Okay, so I love it enough. I guess what I would say is that it maybe lost me in the last 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, I can see how there are points in this movie where probably certain people check out, right? That they're depending on what your level of tolerance is for how they play with this sort of allegory. I can see people checking out at oh, there's too many people in this house, or oh, that's a war zone I'm checking out, or oh, that's a fire I'm checking out, or oh, he just took a thing out of her chest I'm checking out. I was the last part. I was the part where he took the thing out of her chest. I was like, nah, that's a little bit too much. I'm sorry, but the rest of the movie, I'm totally down with.
Well, it's fun because it's fun. It's fun. That was a good one to see in the theater.
I can see that
because you get to see, you can watch, you get to know when people check out because they check out.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see people walking out of this movie.
Oh, they do. They definitely do. They definitely do. I mean, there's a scene with a baby.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, there are a lot of really hard, uncomfortable things to watch in this movie, and I guess I feel like in a theater setting where it's really in your face, it would probably be hard to stomach a bunch of things that happened in it. It was certainly easier from the space of my bedroom or my living room to kind of figure out what was going on. But if I was overwhelmed by a giant screen, yeah, the baby. Everything that happens with the baby is a little intense, and certainly the way that it sort of loses itself in the narrative. I mean, I really like that about this. I really like the way the movie itself is not afraid to go in very outsized directions for what it's trying to accomplish. I mean, it really is trying to end up being kind of surreal. It really is embracing the idea of allegory. It's really okay with that, and I really appreciate that. But at the same time, it's sort of everybody must reach a certain limit at some point. There were a bunch of times when I'm like, okay, this is the end. It's not. Okay, this is the end. Oh, it's not. It's sort of it could have maybe trimmed a little bit more. But that's me.
What do you? The Mother is a movie that brings up a sort of an ethical question for me in the sense that when does an advertising campaign or a trailer, when does it become just flat out fraud?
How would you have ever cut a trailer for it though? I mean, there's no way you could have really advertised for it.
That's fair. That's a good point. I mean, because people thought they were going to a horror movie, and it's just this indescribable thing. I enjoy it. But.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I certainly thought it was going to be a horror movie as well. And it still had a lot of horrific elements to it, and it's still, we were talking earlier about how I need to find tension in horror movies for me to find them successful. This one had loads of tension. There was certainly lots of stuff where I was really uncomfortable about that was happening. So from that sense, it was horrific. It just wasn't a traditional horror movie. But I also feel like the surreality of it was something that was really hard to grasp and really hard to get around. I feel like Aronofsky was basically trying to crib some notes from Jodorowsky. Well, I don't know if you've seen Holy Mountain and things like that, but I mean, he felt like he was certainly taking some notes from there, which I really appreciate and which I really encourage. Mm-hmm. Anytime a movie stretches outside the accepted means or bounds of what you think is going to happen, I'm all for that. It's like what I was saying earlier. These are all creative works. If somebody, a director, has a vision, I'd like to see the vision. I don't want to see it just be a story. So good recommendation.
Yeah,
overall. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
What are you looking forward? What's next? What are you looking forward to?
I need to go to the theater actually and catch up. I haven't seen The Nun and I haven't seen Predator, which I don't hear a whole lot of good about either. But I got to see it for myself.
You're gonna see Predator.
I'm a glutton for.
That's.
Yeah. I mean, it's a Predator movie. You're gonna not see it?
Have you seen every other Predator movie?
Of course.
Have you seen Alien vs. Predator?
Yes.
Have you seen Alien vs. Predator 2?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Is there a 2? I was just making that up. I didn't even know there was a 2.
Didn't they change it to like AV?
Yeah.
Now we gotta look that up. Now we gotta look that up.
I think it's AVP. It's certainly AVP, but I don't know if it's AVP 2 or AVP 3.
All right, let's look up Predator movies. Like having the freedom to just like jump on. So Predator was 87, and then Predator 2, 1990.
Okay.
And then Predators. Oh, maybe I'm confused. Maybe there are movies I haven't seen.
Aha! You gotta catch up on all this
I
stuff.
definitely saw the Alien one was in Antarctica, but was there another one?
Another Predator?
Versus Predator 2. All right. Yes, I've seen them both.
Okay, I'm glad that you've caught up.
But you know what? And I feel like maybe I should roll through these before I go to the theater. Maybe just like do a marathon. We should hang out.
Yeah, we should do a Predator marathon. That'd be fun to do. Like why Predator is a franchise that's ripe to be developed into an ongoing series on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu.
They used to pump out the comics like crazy, man. Dark Horse used to make them. It's a good character.
Well, Dark Horse used to do Alien and Predator, right? Didn't they have both franchises?
Yeah, and Terminator. I believe.
Terminator, yeah. So I guess okay. A lot of James Cameron going on there. I can just see them. I could see like somebody like Hulu or whatever picking it up, and also put Danny Glover back in this stuff, man. You know, like he had his one moment in Predator 2. Clearly the best thing he's ever done. No, I'm kidding. Danny Glover's great.
Put him with Arnold in the next one.
Yeah, that's good. Why isn't he in Expendables? He's too old for that shit. He should be in those things.
Took me a second, but that was good. That was a good one.
In other movie news, though, I went to an event last week that was for the 25th anniversary release of Cabin Boy, which I don't know if you've ever, if you're a fan or have seen Cabin Boy.
I have not seen Cabin Boy.
I think you should check it out.
Is that Martin Short?
Is that what?
Is that Martin Short?
No, that is Chris Elliott.
What is Cabin Boy?
Cabin Boy is Chris Elliott and
okay.
Yeah.
I do need to see that.
Chris Elliott and oh man, why am I blanking on? Hang on. Cabin Boy is Chris Elliott and Adam Resnick, who are both late night with David Letterman sort of alums before he shifted, broadcast networks. And they were writer and actor and writer, respectively, on the show, and they did a lot of crazy fun things. And they managed to get this movie made, which was routinely torn apart for years as like one of the worst movies made, and also, was a huge loss for, I think, Columbia or somebody, whoever released it. And it was just sort of like this. It's funny, like you don't really hear about these kind of things anymore as much because the way things interact online now, you don't necessarily hear about the giant losses. But like Cabin Boy was a huge flop, and it was also a running joke as a huge flop for a number of years. But it found a cult following, so it's finally it's got a 25th year anniversary re-release. I went to a showing at the Nighthawk Cinema in Williamsburg here in Brooklyn last week. And Chris Elliott and Adam Resnick were there to answer questions afterwards, and it was great. I mean, they're wonderful people. They have a lot of humor about of what happened to them, basically, and also about the process that this movie has went through. And the movie itself has stood up to the test of time, and it's very interesting. It's a relic from a certain era. It certainly has a lot of weird, quirky qualities to it. Something that I totally had forgotten about, but I remembered later on when they were talking about it, was that this movie was originally made for Tim Burton to direct. And so there's a lot of really weird Burton-esque sort of like scenes and qualities in this movie that ended up happening even though he didn't end up directing, which made it kind of a weird movie. I think it's definitely worth checking out. I would definitely pick up the DVD or check out the DVD now if you get a chance.
I got to do that.
There's great commentary on it. I think there's great commentary on it from a comedic writer named Mike Sachs, and I think that Adam Resnick is on it as well. I have a friend that worked on the cover for it, so I'm also personally plugging from that point of view, but good times all around. Good times all around is what I'd say. And Chris Elliott, he's such a wonderful guy. He's so nice. He's such a normal gentleman kind of guy. He's just an all around nice person. So, and funny, obviously, but yeah.
Oh, he's hilarious. I mean, that's I think that's why he and Martin Short are like next to each other in my brain, because they're both 10 out of 10 as far as comedic talent and underappreciated.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because certainly during the conversation, it was sort of like if it had become an actual critical success, what would have been the trajectory of Chris Elliott and Adam Resnick's careers? I mean, they were both kind of like blacklisted in a sense for years because of how terrible this movie was received and how terribly it did at the box office. And it's like these are both very talented, interesting guys who produced a movie that's kind of ahead of its time in a lot of ways. I mean, it certainly, I think, translates better to like an audience for today than it did 25 years ago. If they had actually been respected and picked up at the time, what would have happened? I don't know. I wish we had seen a lot more Chris Elliott and a lot more Adam Resnick back in the day. But
yeah, you're right. I mean, the underutilized talent for sure. Although I think Chris Elliott's been a writer on a lot of different things, hasn't he?
Yeah, Chris Elliott has certainly continued to write. I think that he's continued to be in other things. He pops up here and there every once in a while.
Something about Mary, right? He's in that. He was
in Something About Mary. That's true. He was also notably the cameraman in Groundhog Day, which I totally forgot about.
Yes.
That's great. And at this event there were people there that had like VHS copies of Get a Life, his TV series on Fox from back in the 90s. It's like that's great. It's like all these people coming out of the woodwork that are like have their Chris Elliott ephemera. Does
Get a Life stream anywhere? I should
I don't know.
find
That's
it.
a really good question. I would totally investigate that again. I would totally watch it.
Yeah, I would too.
I mean, I feel like I would probably like it a lot more now. I feel like I would get it now. I don't think I would have gotten it back then.
We were a little young. I mean, it's getting harder to remember, but there was a time. Wow. All right, dude. Yeah. Anything else? These are good. I'm learning.
I think that's all I got for now, at least.
Right.
Yeah. You? Anything else?
I'll try and bring something good next time.
I guess we have to figure out some sort of like sign off for this situation or something.
Yeah. It's just kind of peter out. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Like, comment, share on social media. Do it. If people watch this, maybe we'll keep making them.
It's a fair point. Hey Dave, what do you do if you're ever attacked by a group of clowns?
What's that?
You go for the juggler.
Very good.
Yeah,
That's
thank
good.
you.